we brought on a lot of interns that are working full time. We are about 46 currently in the company. Engineering is most of it. And then also, we care a lot about distribution. So, marketing is also a decent sized team. Our marketing team is actually quite technical too. They're data science people that are coming up with different ways of reaching customers and different technologies for converting and so that's basically the size of organization. We have multiple people in different parts of the organization. It feels like a big company.
I'm Jake Aaron Villarreal, born and raised in Silicon Valley, and here to take you behind the scenes to share what it's like to be a startup founder, the journey they're on, the problems they face, the products they build, and effort to make our lives better. I'm excited to have with us today Kevin Kissi, co-founder and CEO of Zof AI. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Well, Kevin, thanks for joining. Where are you dialing in from today?
I am in Oakland, California.
When I started this podcast, I had this vision to go behind the scenes to share what it's like to be a startup founder in Silicon Valley, where I'm born and raised. And weekly, we dive deep in the trenches to find the wins, the losses, and the lessons learned, with the hopes that it helps you run a better startup. But here's the thing. If you've gotten any value out of these conversations or been inspired at all, hit the subscribe button. And I get it. Your podcast feed's probably overflowing. But to stay up to date with what's going on in Silicon Valley, stick with us. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to build something that matters. And we're better when we do it together. So hit that subscribe button and follow us wherever you find your podcasts. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, great. I love Oakland. I just drove through there this weekend. So it was beautiful and all sorts of exciting stuff happening there, which is, by the way, if you don't know, Oakland is really part of Silicon Valley. It's just across the bay from San Francisco. And there's a lot happening there. So a little bit more about Kevin before we jump in here. He's a seasoned software engineer leading an AI-powered software testing platform with nearly a decade of experience, including leading engineering teams at Microsoft. Kevin brings deep expertise in AI, machine learning, and building impactful software solutions for startups and enterprise systems. Kevin, we had a call a few weeks back about kind of your upbringing and where you're from, and there's a lot to tackle there, but what are some of the earlier experiences you've had that have shaped the path you're on today?
I think I think I can date it all the way back to I saw signals of wanting to build something that solves people, something that is as close as possible to an oxygen service. And so, I mean, it just carried along, just wanted to have an impact. People, seeing that my work is something that people use to get from point A to point B. And over time, how I carry out that mission has changed. It has been through consulting, it has been through working in corporate America, and it has also been through being in venture, worked on, different other startups over the time, also been through nonprofit as well. So that has always changed in how I manifest that into the real world. But in Zoff, I truly believe that we're building something that is closely aligned to that.
Really cool. Working for a big company like Microsoft has advantages and also opens doors for you. What was the big break, or what was it that you saw that you felt like, hey, there's an opportunity to try building something on my own and building a team? And maybe this isn't your first startup, but what's the opportunity that you saw while working there?
I think I got to see how big of a deal QA is, because if you're dealing with the high fidelity products that we dealt with billions and billions of people actually using it. And for my case, I mean, our solutions ended up on billions of devices, right? Millions of devices. And so quality becomes a very, very important aspect of our work. We spend a lot of our time on that. We spent a lot of our time on QA. And so I got the chance to see also how much Microsoft spends on QA as well. The vendors that are part of the process, how inefficient that process is, how painful it is for engineer managers to manage, work with vendors, work that can be fully automated internally, and how taking full ownership of QA meant that you have a productivity decline of the features that you're also responsible for. And so that's what kind of forces the organizations to consider looking elsewhere instead of and
Yeah.
so
Well, that's great. And the market is a massive part of software. If you think about it, any product that you use today, whether it's on a mobile phone or your laptop, is software that's been tested because if it doesn't work, you won't use it. So the numbers out there are, billions and billions of dollars spent annually. And of that, 1/5 of that, whether it's testing or software development, is typically for just making sure that it works. So today, we'll be talking about atomic sized agents that enable teams, regardless of technical expertise, to automate their testing for web applications and mobile applications, solving 99% of bugs with AI. So I guess give us give us your sort of high level 30,000 foot view of Zof AI, of how it's redefining testing and kind of how does it work?
Yeah, from a bird's eye view, we believe that if you build agents that are limited enough in scope, you can get to the point where you can actually get higher levels of accuracy and consistency and dependability as much as possible. And then you just build a way of being able to command those agents at will to be able to have a whole workflow. Then you can actually tackle all of QA under one roof. And so that's the journey that we've gone on. I could probably get into a thesis of why, we exist the way we do. But we believe that all of software at some point will be, for the most part, being built by AI, right? We believe that we're gonna be at a point where a small piece of software generation and software development is going to be done by humans. Right now, we might see that software development using AI tools like Cursor, Lovable, and whatnot. They might be at the junior level engineer, but I think over time they're going to continue to get to maybe say a level two software engineer, or maybe level two software engineer would be someone that can work without any supervision, and then maybe like senior that can actually get to the point where they can actually orchestrate and figure out what other things to consider and lead on things. I think we'll get to that point over time as the workflows become a little bit more not complex necessarily, but more capable. And so, with that premise, QA needs to follow along, right? QA also needs to be fully automated with no human in the loop, be able to meet that speed of development, right? The velocity has changed. The velocity is, several X. I want to say 10X, but I would definitely say it's way more than 10X. And so, with that approach, and also because the fact that QA is that, piece of software development that gives confidence to go to production, you don't have much room for errors, right? You need to be very much on target with accuracy. And so with that, the best approach that I see is that you need to build smaller things that can yield that level of accuracy, right? And so that's why we've taken the approach that we're taking, and then being very precise at orchestrating that. And then also the approach of no human in a loop obviously is evident of the fact that if humans are not building the software, then we need to find ways test without humans needing to be part of that workflow. So
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the tools that are out there today, and you mentioned a Cursor and Windsurf and a number of other tools that are being deployed that actually help engineers code a lot of what they're looking to build. And maybe at some level, it will automate all of the coding, who knows? There's always been a conflict between the developers building a product and then having another set of eyes to look for the bugs or look for the problems that are in the code so that they can then alert them to fix it. Where does a tool like this fit into that scenario? Whether it's someone doing the building themselves, developing, or code automated tools that are actually developing without any humans in the loop. I don't know. Is that currently in the market today?
but we are going to make it in the market where you can just command an agent like maybe Windsurf or Cursor or whatnot to build you a specific capability, right, within software. It's going to orchestrate itself, build it for you, and then it's going to call something like Zof to also test and find the bugs within that and check to see that it met your requirements. And then if it meets all of those requirements, and it even meets like security standards, it meets like compliance and all these other things, then it will just go into production right away and your users can start using it right away. So that's the direction that I think we're gonna be in a very very near future, not very very far from now. We're just a few weeks away from that.
That's amazing. Wow. So the outcomes would be that as an engineer or tools that are developing code, your system integrates and automates the testing, creates the test cases, the test automation, delivers, the bugs that it finds. Does it actually fix them on the fly, or does it just alert you to here's what needs to be fixed?
Yeah, so today we are alerting and bringing attention to the bugs that we find, but we also could have a feedback loop that we're working on right now so that the agent that you're using to actually build the solution for you can also address those bugs. So we actually do have today, we do have a feature called auto assignments. And so that means that we'll assign a bug to either a human or an agent that you're using. So you're able to track who caused the bug and assign it to that person, whether it's the human or an agent. And so you can have that continuous feedback loop that, and at the end of the day, we get to a point where we get a finished product that uses.
Yeah. There's so much conversation today about agents and AI agents and orchestrating and managing agents. What's the difference between an atomic agent versus an AI agent from a layman's perspective?
Yeah, so I think, for us, we just came up with that word. An atom is that smallest level of matter. And so our idea is that the smallest possible QA agent within a QA discipline, like say within security, there's several, atomic size within that. And we have like say an agent that all it does is just look at SQL injection, just does SQL injection, nothing more than that, right? So we're considered that atomic size agent, and it does it very, very well. And so that's what we mean by atomic size. I think I missed part of your point. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, I think you are. I think there's a lot of different words out there today around agents, and it means
Oh,
different things to different people.
yeah,
So for you, it's essentially taking a granular look at agents. And if I think about a platform like yours that you're building, give us an idea of how many agents are actually collaborating and working on bug finding and fixing when it comes to QA automation today.
yeah. Before I get to that, maybe I missed some key parts of that earlier question. So with limited scope agents, atomic size agents, the difference is that they have all the context on what they're testing and no other context whatsoever, right? There's no other anything else that they know they have any visibility to. They just know this and that. That's it. Other agents out there might be a little bit more generalized, as in, hey, you give me this prompt and I'll figure out how to solve it for you, right? So for us, atomic size, if you give it anything else that is not related to, say, SQL injection, it won't be able to do anything. So it's just that one tool that does just that. And then following up on your next question, which I just forgot.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, I'm throwing a lot at you here. In terms of like, yeah, the number of agents, there's so many platforms that have, this orchestration layer of they've built agents that then manage it. And it's might be a few. And
Yeah,
some are like there's much more because the problem they're trying to solve is, maybe more complex. So kind of
yeah.
walk us through visually, if you can, for the listeners that aren't able to look on a screen, like what are we really talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking. So, what I try to tell people is you imagine a company, right? There are so many people with different roles, and they have like specific, OKRs for their role. They have descriptions for their role, and they do just those things, right? And then they have a manager that sits on top of them for their particular, area. And then that person has another manager, that kind of, but together they all move together as a company to accomplish one thing for their customers, right? You can think of it the same way as the set of agents that are trying to, give a green light to go to production, right? You have all these agents that are focused on just this or that and that, and they sit under a category of testing, say maybe security, say compliance, maybe say, compatibility testing that has multiple agents under that. And basically it's managed by sending specific test requests to that. Well, I don't want to get into the details of how we do it, but essentially we have a similar structure in terms of managing these agents and being able to call the right agents for the right test case, that sort of thing going on there. I think, you know, the orchestration is probably one of our biggest IPs. Orchestrating a whole workflow that engages multiple agents, and then being able to aggregate that data all across, what we get from all these different agents, and then making sense out of it, and then distilling it down for the user to say, hey, this is the outcomes of your test workflow. Is it a green light or is it a red light to go to production, right? I think that is that critical sauce or critical recipe that we have that makes us a lot different and makes us more capable, I suppose. But this is the trajectory that I think we're all heading. Anyone who is in the QA space, if they are not, then I guess there might be a problem for them very
Yeah.
soon, as we offer 20x the value in the market. So that's even for other functions like, say, legal, other areas. If you're tackling, say, a case, there are so many aspects of the case that need to be researched. So if you're using agents to do that, you need to figure out how to manage all of that and aggregate all of that information, and then come up with strategies and whatnot to execute what you need to.
Yeah. QA is, we are a recruitment company, but we have built our own applications and testing. And we, at one point, we're providing testing services to our clients too. And we talked a little bit about that. When you're talking to a company, and if you, by the way, have never developed software or tested it, there's like this whole process that you have to define what you want to test and what are the test cases look like. In other words, like, what are you going to ask the application to make sure it does well, and then test it to see if it actually performs. And so test cases just alone take, this is a while back, but it would take a company like, weeks to build these test cases. And then at some point come to us and say, okay, every single function of our application needs to be tested. So run these test cases to see if you can break our system. And then you get back to them, and 2 or 3 weeks later, you've got a report of here's what worked, here's what's broken, here's a video snippet of what was
Mhm.
broken, and now go fix that, software
Mhm.
developer. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
When you talk about test cases and workflows, like, how big of a library do you have to support multiple clients, multiple enterprises, and how quick is it to actually engage your platform and start using?
Yeah, so right now, actually, we do have the enterprise grade 2.0 services live, but not yet GA'd yet. So that's something that I'm really, really proud of. We got it working just yesterday, everything talking to each other and everything. Basically, it's infinitely scalable, right? If your application is large enough, we might end up generating, say, 200,000 test cases for it, right? A human might not, human being might not be able to do this, right? We have higher permutations of these test cases that we're generating because we want to make sure we don't miss any edge cases. But we're also on a trajectory of, finding optimization within that, right? We might have way more test cases than needed, but that's because we want to make sure we don't miss anything as well, right? And so trying to figure out over time. So when a customer jumps onto our environment and start using us, over time, we might not keep generating more test cases for that same application. Maybe the first time we generated a whole lot more test cases because we're trying to cover everything, right? Now, over time, we come to have a very clear understanding about how the application works, what are the defects, that sort of thing. And so another test run on that application is it has a much more deeper context from a previous test run. And so then we're able to just be more on target. And so that's basically like, how things are functioning today. Did I answer all your questions?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
there's so many different categories as well of testing.
Exactly.
Like, what does your platform cover?
Yeah. So we are covering all categories of testing, not having all the agents online. Currently, we have 26 agents that precisely do. We have about, I think, 17 that are not live yet, but the ones that are deployed today, 26 of them. And we're covering anywhere from interface testing to load testing, stress testing, endurance testing. security, we're touching some aspects of security, not all aspects of security. We're touching compliance, GDPR compliance. I think these other categories have businesses that are focused solely on that, but they're not fully automated with agents. So we have AGs disciplines as well. And so, but when it comes to say unit test, we don't actually generate the unit test in the workflow, in the one workflow. That's the workflow is usually for like late stage tests. That is after you build the app and you're trying to see whether it can go to production or not. But when it comes to say unit testing and whatnot, we have a different workflow where you go and you target a specific agent, like say the unit test set of unit tests. We have a unit test agent that generates the unit test for a specific language, and then also we also have a generation agent that is also gonna, sandbox your application, test everything, make sure that all the unit tests that we have generated work properly, and then we give you a detailed report, that kind of thing. So yeah, we have also like integration, end-to-end tests. We find a critical path so we can actually test everything, make sure all your different services are talking to each other. That is all that all of this is possible because you give us your requirements documents that gives us the context of how to generate accurate test cases and what we need to test for. And then also even a step further, is we want to get to a point where you don't even need to give us the requirements documents. Our crawling of your application and other aspects should be enough. So that's what we're working towards. But today we do also crawl and gain context and scope of the application as well, and then we add it all together to the requirements document that you've given us for something that we're calling internally a context file, of which we use for generating these test cases
Got it.
that that are to some degree able to cover your entire application.
That's really cool. So, if a company has built an application, they give you a requirements document and they say, look, we want to use Zof AI from beginning to end, and probably depends on the complexity of the application and how big it is, enterprise versus maybe a mobile app or whatnot.
Mhm.
What's the reality of you being able to come back to them and say, okay, we're ready to go. Now we're going to do the testing and here's the result. Like what can they expect in terms of delivery of making sure their application's running well, or at least it's getting accurate insights about where their bugs are and they're being worked on or fixed?
Yeah, certainly. So you upload a requirements document. You give us the of your current app if it's live. You give us a dev, version of it or whatnot, and chances of us being able to give you a yet no go or go is very high based on it's related based on the requirement, the depth of the requirements document you give us. If you give us all the parameters that is necessary to test, say when it comes to say API testing, if you give us clear parameters for doing API tests, we don't have to come back to you and say, hey, we're missing context. Some of our agents, one of the things they come back with is, hey, we're missing context. And then through our specification studio, you can give us the details that we request. So we have another feature where we go through the requirements document with you. And then we say, hey, these are different things that are opportunities for us so that we can get to the point where we can have full coverage of our testing. And so that's where we just kind of like have that feedback loop with the user so we can make sure we have proper context from what we're testing. So I mean, the reality of us being able to get to the point where we give you everything that you need tested, and then being able to say, hey, it's ready to go to production, is based on how well documented your requirements document. A lot of bigger companies, they tend to have much quality requirements documents, and the smaller companies that might not follow that kind of hard process might just have user stories here or there that might be missing from requirements document and whatnot. Eventually we find out that they don't have enough of that information through the first test, and then we come back to them and say, hey, you need to give us this. And then we test again, we realize, hey, you gave us something that is not accurate, we need more information here. And then we work together until we finally get to the point where everything is covered. And this is all just you interacting with AI agents that are in the back end that are figuring out all of it. And we get to that point. And we also scoring our process as well. We're also scoring and telling you the coverage level that we've reached. And you can also give us feedback. You can give the agent feedback as well, so they can actually position itself to the point where you are at an absolute in your testing journey.
Got it. One of your selling points is it's a no-code testing platform. How does this change the role of QA engineers or product managers?
One of the things that we've been seeing with, interacting with certain customers is that they want some human to be an owner of some QA work, right? And so even if they're using us to test and they don't have to actually get into the code or anything, that person is going to be the one that logs into the platform with the requirements doc, or that person is going to be the person that provides any missing context. Some of our customers have even asked us to allow them to be able to modify the test cases that we generate. And so in order to do that, they have to go into settings and then select manual mode to be able to go in there and be able to edit some of the test cases. That is not where we want things to be. Eventually, we're going to be pushing. That is a signal that trust is not there yet, right? And it's a journey. Eventually, the trust is going to be there. They're going to see that, oh, the test cases that are being generated are on target, right? Modifying is not probably the best approach. Given more information, the requirements doc, it might be a better approach, or based on how they built the application, they're going to over time get better and better about how they want to build as well, so that it's testable application by AI. So maybe you've hard coded certain things in your application, and so then it's hard to find those key parameters. Then obviously we're going to struggle to be able to test everything, right? But maybe say you're storing this here and you're giving us access there, that kind of thing. Do a better job at testing. So someone is an owner, or we're built such that all the team members in an engineering team can be on Zof, and that way we can actually track how everybody's doing in terms of their quality standards, right? So for one of the key features for our application is that we're able to look through all the commits. If you have an engineer on your team that is causing most of the bugs with their commits, be able to identify that person. And so that person is going to be scored differently from someone that has fewer bugs with their commits, and someone that is also meeting SLA in terms of fixing those bugs as soon as they appear in surface. So that person is going to have a much higher quality score. And so the whole entire team gets to be on the platform and participate in this QA journey for any organization.
Well, it's interesting. You have companies like Meta and other big organizations that they say, look, as an engineer, you're going to develop a feature or a function and you're going to own it. You're also going to test it and make sure it's ready to be deployed. So,
Mhm.
if this is a tool that helps an engineer do their job better on the testing side, which I'm sure you probably don't like to do that much. I mean, you built the application, you think it runs well, but there's going to be some bugs. I mean, it's natural. But to have something that can automate finding those without you having to do the work,
Yeah.
I mean, why would you not want to look at that as an engineer and forget about like anything else? So the question I have for you is, who are you selling to within a company? Who's most excited about this type of technology?
And so, I mean, given my background, I built with the point of view of engineer management, right? Our goal has always to be to create more capacity within our teams, right? And in order to do that, you need find some optimizations within the work that your team does, right? If they spend a lot of time on QA, and that can be fully automated, why not use that solution that does that for you, right? And then your team can also own. Also, another thing too that to consider is that you want your team to own QA as well. You don't want it to be handled by some vendor, which you have to be managing as well, and they might not share your quality standards, but your team is directly under your control, right? And so you are able to culture them into adhering to your quality standards as a manager. And so when you have a tool like this that sits within your team as a member of your team, and your team is subscribed to it, you own all of the QA process as well, right? Anything going to production, it's you're able to have full control of your fate, knowing that whatever you put into production is well tested and is bug free, right? Whereas if you're the alternative is if you have any external team members that are working on something, then you risk, either losing more time to check in their work, or risk maybe sign off on something that might have some bugs on it, right? So our biggest customers tend to be engineering managers that are within teams, and they are the first people to get adapted to this, right? Engineers also see, like, just single individual engineers also see value in just being able to not have to work on QA at all, right? That painful aspect of testing everything. Like for example, if you're building something, a small feature that is UI based, not that you just only have to do the unit test for it, you also have to go and check the UI as well, right? If you have to go and check and make sure everything is working, I mean, that's double work. You're doing the code side and then you're also doing the interface side. What if you had something that you're plugged into that is automatically generating the unit test for you, testing the unit test, making sure that you haven't broken any integration issues, you're able to do regression on the fly, you're able to test the UI. We have multiple, browser agents that are spun up and testing various aspects of that for you, coming back to you and telling you, hey, this thing is not working, focus on this, and telling you how to fix it as well, right? A good percentage of your work is automated. And all of it already, you're also using tools like maybe Windsurf or Cursor to also improve your production. So it makes sense to also even go a step further and also doing, more strategic work instead of grunt work by also having those two parts being automated for you. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And I see a lot of value in not just the automation, but just also the culture. Because if you think about it, you have engineering that's working with QA teams, and there's a lot of friction that can happen there. And oftentimes, maybe your star developers are a little bummed out at times when they're being scrutinized about their tech. And, it doesn't have to be like that if you have a system that's supporting them in a process that's automated, it's not an energy leak, but helping them actually do their job better and faster and more accelerated. So I see a lot of positive to this, to what you guys have built and what you're continuing to innovate. There's a lot of AI tools in the market today, and a lot of them are coming. What do you see as your advantage in how you maintain your position and also continue to build in a crowded space?
yes, this space is very crowded. What we're seeing is, you know, I've seen a lot of generalist solutions out there, and I think they end up not having the quality that is needed, to give the confidence. At the end of the day, you're trying to give a team confidence that whatever they've built is good enough to go. And then you're also giving them suggestions and identifying the bugs that they need to fix. And you want to identify them fast, right? The way we stand out is quality, right? The quality of our testing, and that's based on the approach that we've taken. And then also the fact that you can actually cover more horizontally, right? Vertically, you have more accuracy. You can honing on just targeting just one specific agent and say, hey, this agent, I want you to do this for me. Scalability agents just test to make sure that if I'm scaling my application, I shouldn't run into any issues, right? So we have that critical thing you can do at any time. You can just go and select whatever agent you want to select. A lot of different competitors don't have that. They're just like either they're one size fits all or they're just focused on just one thing. And so when you find yourself doing is that you have to use this tool for that thing, you have to use this tool for that thing, you have to use that tool for that thing. When maybe you could maybe just organize a workflow that does a lot more for you. And then that workflow is not going to be something that is so generalized that it misses like 30% of the things that are very important to you, right? Our goal is to be at 99.9% accuracy, and we work towards that. And the fact that we're using atomic size agents allows us to be close to that as possible. And so, in the market, we're changing the way QA works by just saying, hey, instead of worrying about unit tests, this is just something that should disappear, right? It should just be in the background. You're building something. You don't need to think about what you need to test, how you need to test it. It's just done for you, right? You just get results. That's it. So we're that company that we want to, it's different from every other company, but we're the company that wants to disappear, right? We're building a solution that basically just sits in the background. It just works and it works perfectly all the time. And you don't have to ever worry about it.
Yeah. That's a perfect solution for today's world with AI accelerating so much, and it's incredible to just see the growth and the transformation across all industries. So I know there's a huge market, huge opportunity. It sounds like you're building something incredibly useful. Let's switch gears for a moment here. Talk a little bit about the company size and where you're at employee wise, and just generally located. Are you, local? Are you international? Walk us through the culture of your company.
Yeah, so we've done some really creative hiring, because we realized that we need to build a lot of these agents fast. And so we brought on a lot of interns. Sorry, excuse me. We brought on a lot of interns that are working full time. We are about 46 currently in the company. Engineering is most of it. And then also we care a lot about distribution. So marketing is also a decent sized team. Our marketing team is actually quite technical too. They're data science people that are coming up with different ways of reaching customers and different technologies for converting and so that's basically the size of the organization. We have multiple people in different parts of the organization. It feels like a big company with a bunch of interns that are working, as full-time employees. But yeah, that's kind of like what we got going on here.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because I think interns have different levels of expertise, and some are, in the beginning of their college career, some are graduated and they're just looking for their first job, but they'll take a role on that's defined as an intern. How do you
Yeah.
define an intern?
Yeah. So I mean, so we were very, very strategic in the interns that we brought on. Like some of the interns we have, they used to be full-time employees at Microsoft, full-time employees at Amazon, and they went to do their graduate degree. Some of them have a good percentage of them have actually finished their graduate degree and they are in the market and they are doing an internship with us because they believe in what we're building. They know this is the future, this is something new and it's exciting. So we're able to attract such folks. So a lot of them already have some experience, right? Maybe level two software engineer somewhere, but now they're just doing their masters. And so maybe they're in between their masters. And so they're taking an internship while finishing their masters in computer science or whatnot. And so that's the kind of people that we have in house. And so, and yes, we do have maybe like two or three that are undergrads, like senior undergrads, but they are very performant as well. They come in, they see everybody here, and then it raises the standard and the level at which they also have to perform. And then over time, you see that they actually end up at that same standard. Coaching them, it takes a lot to do when you have interns come in and they don't have already the experience. But when you look at the trajectory of when they came in and what they've been able to build, it's only a matter of time until they get there. And they get there very quickly with these, AI tools that are already out there that they can also benefit from to help them bring things, right. My team uses, Cursor and Windsurf and all these other tools out there to actually help them build fast, right. So in today's world, you can basically get more context about how to build something by just asking an LLM, hey, how do I approach this problem, right? Without them having to come and talk to me and ask me, hey, how do I build this? And so most of the time it's not like I'm having to like coach them on how to fully build something, like in terms of like the manual granular getting to the granular details of that. It's more so about context and direction and approval to take this turn or take that turn, look into this door a little bit more, or maybe take a pause and then focus more on this. So I spend a lot more time on that than actually, you know, get into, hey, this is how you should write this, this piece of function, right. Sometimes I'll get into that just to be more, accelerate things a little bit more. Also I like to be a little bit closer to code too, even though we've just become more like a system now. But I want to continue to stay closer to code, and I try to contribute as much as I can to the code side as well. But yeah, interns can actually still yield a decent size productivity or velocity as someone who is experienced. Someone who is experienced might have some bad habits. They might feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't use, this LLM because I feel like, I have always done it this way. But maybe if you ask, this LLM, it might come up with multiple different ways of approaching that problem that maybe you might not consider, right. And so these kids have that bias of doing that right away, or starting there first and then questioning their ideas of how they wanted to approach it so that they can be on target from the jump, right. And so I mean there are definitely some plus some minuses to consider on both sides of, initially I considered maybe if I want to hire a team, I'm just going to focus on seniors and principals because they just need to know how to use LLM to do especially what they need to do, because that's the tools we use today. But I think with enough sufficient leadership, you can, good enough leadership, you can actually get a team of interns to produce good work as well. I'm very, very impressed by the things that we've been able to build, like things that have not been built anywhere else on this planet have come out of interns. And so I'm very, very proud of what we've been able to do with, but we'll be able to achieve with interns.
Yeah, really, really cool. We haven't heard that a ton, so it sounds like you're onto something that's really helped your company accelerate and really continue to do what you're doing. I think that's incredible. What's something that you wished you would have known before you started your company that you know now that would be helpful for others to learn as they start their own startups?
Yeah, yeah. I when I started this company, I thought it was going to be easier to raise capital. I really thought it was just, oh, it's simple. I have the experience, I have a clear vision about what I'm trying to build. If I partner with, a co-founder that has this and that, I partner with somebody that has a PhD from Harvard, I thought, and he also has raised, money in the past from VC capital. And I later on partnered with someone else who also had a Harvard MBA. And I thought, oh, those are checking the boxes, right? I'm trying to check the boxes, you know, technical guy that knows what he's doing. But it turned out that it's a little bit more complex than that. It's a little bit more grunt work than that. To some degree, sometimes you don't even know what VCs are looking for anymore because we try to check all these boxes and still come up short. And so that's something that, I should have known. I think over time I got caught on, right? I got caught on by figuring out that, hey, we can just hire interns. you know, we can just hire interns. I mean, the goal was we raise capital, we hire that super team that does what we need them to do. And because we're using interns, maybe we get 2x the number. So we can get the same velocity that maybe we might have gotten if we had like a smaller, more experienced team. And so, I mean, I've learned a lot over time and I've found ways to improvise and pivot to make sure that we get to where we need to be. But yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs. I think I thought it was actually harder to get customers. Getting customers is a lot easier, a
Hmm.
whole lot easier than actually getting VC. And so now we're focused solely on just our customers because it's you have to tackle the things you can win at, right? We can win at getting our customers, but if we can easily win at VC capital, maybe we focus on that. That can show up later.
Yeah. And
That's the way we've been approaching things. We just spend a lot of time just like you know create maintaining the excitement within the company and then externally as well. And that has given us a decent size wait list of people that are waiting to try version 2.0, that kind of thing. So I mean, that's those are things that I thought if I move to SF and I focus solely on this, I do nothing else but that. I quit real estate, find someone else to manage that. I don't do anything but just Zof, nothing else, Zof. Good things will happen very, very quickly. But it turns out that it's a longer journey than that. So that's another key thing that I've come to realize.
yeah. Well, proximity is power. So the fact that you are in Silicon Valley will be helpful when it comes to building those relationships with VC firms if you need it. Sounds like you might not need it, but if you do, I like the strategy that you have with interns and building product and focusing on the customer. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have the customers, VCs aren't going to care, right? Like you have to show client usage, low churn, revenue, growth. So those are all the things I think that are fundamental. And then you look at like strategically how you're getting to market. And if you have data scientists that help you on the marketing side, I mean, it's all about the data and the outreach and the systems that can help pull in, you
Yeah,
know, getting above the noise with all the AI tools out there that actually something that we work with that actually delivers that you can try, that you can do it quickly and see a good outcome. I mean, I think you're onto something really cool here. So, if anybody wants to find Zof, ZOF dot AI, where do they go?
yeah, just go to zof.ai, and yeah, our website will guide you towards pricing page. You sign up and then you're right there into using this amazing product we built.
Really, that's
Yeah,
awesome. And Kevin, if they want to find you, where do they go?
I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. That's one place that if you want to kind of listen to a lot of the random thoughts that I have, you can definitely follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn. But yeah, all over the place in SF, I go to a lot of these different events that I think are worthwhile, worth being at. And so if you're in the SF, chance of you running into me at the different events is also possible. Once in a while, it's better to leave the office, not be cooked up in here, 4 hours a day, 16 hours a day. And so going to some of these tech events that are going around SF, it's, I just basically just just look on Luma, what's going on today? I'm like, okay, well, this is a good break.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I do, and I get to meet a lot of people that way. I met some cool folks. Like I went to event hosted by Lynchen. I met the founder and CEO of Lynchen.
Mm.
Great conversation there. So I mean, I go to some of these interesting events, and I met cool founders and have a good chat and see how we can work together, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And for the listeners, for listening, it means a lot to me. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to catch up with you all in the next episode. Until then, Kevin, the world, take care. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And follow us on YouTube, where we go behind the scenes to learn what it takes to be a startup founder.